Okay, so I went shopping, but I'll get to that in a minute and explain why I made the purchase. But this video is going to be kind of highlighting what I use to hand sand my projects. In respect to the planers and the joiners and the table saws, where do the sanders fall into that category? Do we treat them as equals to the other power tools that we have in our shop? The only job for the sander is to get things nice and flat and smooth. It's a necessary step in part of the process to complete a project. So we can't skip that step, right? So we need a vehicle to get us through that step, and for most of us it's hand power tools, hand sanders. Now I'm not talking about sanding by hand with sandpaper, I'm talking about the tools themselves. And that got me thinking, I want to kind of review at a higher level what I use for sanders in any given project. So they all have their own specific purpose, and let's go through them. Alright, so let's start from the oldest to, I guess, newest. So this is an extremely heavy and somewhat old sander. It's a, I guess you would call it a sheet sander. It takes regular sandpaper that you cut it down to size, and just like any other sheet sander, you clip it on either end. This particular one is by Black & Decker, and it's, like I said, it's very heavy. And I believe my grandfather owned this, and it was passed down to my father, and now it's mine. It comes in super handy when I have large sheet goods, or something where I need to be a little more aggressive in terms of sheet sanding. And I believe the original purpose of this type of sander was for maybe floor sanding, hardwoods. I don't know, that's just my guess. But this is definitely my go-to sander when I need to be a little aggressive on larger pieces of wood. I also have Porter cable. This is probably about 10 to 12 years old. I primarily use this as buffing for some of my cast iron tools, but I can also attach an attachment to it to have it as like a disc sander of sorts. But I primarily use this for buffing out stuff. So this is Porter cable. I like this, it works great. This is another Porter cable, and again, this is probably about 10 to 12 years old as well. It's seen better days. It still works, but the padding on the bottom is getting worn out, and I know Porter cable still offers up a type of sheet sander, but definitely not the same style. So I'm not sure if any replacement pads would be available for this model. And it works great. It's been very reliable for me over the years, for the past 10 to 12 years. The onboard dust collection is okay, but once you hook up a shop vac to it, it sucks great. I have many belt sanders, but these are a couple that I use mostly. This is another Porter cable. It's a smaller belt sander, and it's good for the smaller jobs. This works great. Again, this is probably about 8 to 10 years old. And I have this other belt sander that I use for larger items, for larger projects. It is, I don't even know who makes this. Skill. So I'm not sure how old this is, but it's probably more than 8 years old. It still works, it works great. The belt drift is a little wonky on it. I keep having to adjust it, but it works great. So my other go-to sander, in combination with the sheet sander, I would use my random orbital sander. And this again is made by Porter Cable. It's about 10 to 12 years old, and I probably bought it the same time I bought that one. So, but my only problem with this is the pad ripped off or wore off. I tried hot gluing it back on, didn't stick. I tried regular glue, like CA glue or some other sort of epoxy. It just eventually comes off. I tried Porter Cable to get a replacement for it. It seemed very challenging, and I got discouraged and stopped. I'll eventually try some other type of glue to get this on, but without this, it's useless. Otherwise, the motor still works great. When it was fully operational, this was my go-to random orbital sander. This particular issue brought me to where I am today. Let me explain. Okay, so this will be an unboxing video. We have a sheet sander and a random orbital sander and some sanding discs. So let me go on to explain why I made the purchase. So we all know that there are many different types of sanders on the market. You have some of the big names, DeWalt, Makita, Porter cable, and you have the bigger names like Festool. They seem to be the tools to own, but they also come with a hefty price tag as well. So, with that being said, I happened to be in Harbor Freight over the past weekend, and they offered up these two items at a sale price. So this one was $24.99, and this one was $24.99. Having never owned a Bauer type hand tool or power tool, I was interested. So let me explain to you also why I made the purchase, what motivated me to make the purchase. Although I don't need a sheet sander because I have my Porter cable, but I do need a new random orbital, at least one to get me over the hump while I have the other one repaired. So I decided to, rather than spend, the extra $70 to get one of the other brand names, I figured let me just try to get over the hump and get something a little cheaper. So that's why I decided to go with Bauer. Now this wasn't a conscious decision. I didn't go out shopping one day and say I need to get a cheap random orbital sander. Like I said, I just happened to be in Harbor Freight over the weekend and I saw that these were on sale. This will be an unboxing. I haven't even opened these yet. So there are also other videos on unboxing these and also reviewing them as well. So that's where my curiosity came in. That's why I made the purchase, and also the attractive price tag as well. So I believe these two units are a few years old. They're not the latest Bauer offerings. They have some battery versions of these now. But for me, for hand sanding, I'm not really looking for a battery type setup. I just hate charging batteries. So that's why I like corded tools. I can plug it in and use it and don't worry about having to charge it. All right, let's just start off opening the boxes. Like I said, I haven't even opened these yet. So this one is the sheet sander, the Palm sheet sander version. It's 2.2 amps, rated at 2.2 amps, and it's the Palm finishing sander. Model number 1715E-B. Okay, let's go ahead and open it. Alright, we have owner's manual. It looks like an easy read. Okay, we have the bottom plate for when you put sandpaper on it and you sit the sander on top and it pokes holes in the sandpaper for dust collection. This is very important to have and not to lose. Okay, so that's it. So you basically have the unit, the sander. Okay, I'm going to put the box aside for now. Alright, so let me just get an overview of first impressions. It looks like a palm sander. The way you put the sandpaper on is your typical latch pin mechanism. The pad feels nice. The ergonomics, again, this is just first impressions for the ergonomics. It feels solid. It feels good in your hand. We'll get to the vibration factor in a minute once I plug it in, but it feels good. Nice rubber coating with some hard plastic. And I gotta say, I do like the color scheme. I like the black and the red. Let's open up this box. So again, this is a 2.8 sander. It's a 5-inch random orbital palm sander, model number 1712E-B. And like I said, I haven't even opened these yet, so I'm gonna open it now. Okay, just like the last one, you have the owner's manual. It comes with actually a spare disc, which is rated at 80 grit. Okay, that's nice. Put that aside. And it looks like that's it. Put the box aside. Take the plastic off. Okay, again, I'm going to go with first impressions. Slightly larger hand grip than the palm sander. And a slightly taller profile. This is the random orbital sander. And it's hook and loop, it's Velcro. So I bought some 5-inch hook and loop universal pattern sanding discs. I bought 220 and 150 grit. And it feels good. Again, I like the black and the red color scheme. The grip is nice and hard coated rubber. It feels like a durable plastic for the body. So these are the 2 units. First impression, they seem pretty good. The build quality seems good. Alright, so like I said earlier, there are plenty of videos up on these particular units and they ran them through their paces. The feedback from those videos were basically, you know, these are hobbyist machines and they're not really meant for long-term use in terms of, you know, a professional production environment. I obviously cannot review that aspect of it because I just opened them. I haven't used them yet. So, but I will say that, you know, I'm going into this setting the bar very low. And that's not anything against Bauer or any other likewise moderate priced tools. My review of tools is basically my experience with them, you know, whether I use them often or not so often. So my expectation of having these 2 sanders in my army of sanders is that they will receive a lot of use, but certainly not in a production setting. You know, I'm not going to be running them 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. So with that being said, these should be able to handle my use for them. And also my expectation is I'm going to use this one temporarily, the orbital sander, until I make my decision on the one that I really want to purchase. So this is just a temporary solution, but also it's a good opportunity to review it, and if I like it, then I will keep it, obviously. And the price point on these are very attractive, and I think it's very reachable for most people that are just getting into the hobby of woodworking, or even like myself, I just need it for a temporary solution until I get my other sander working, or I buy a more expensive one. There are some criticisms on the design of these units, primarily around the power cord, where the powered cord comes out of the main body, because this design has what's called an onboard dust collection system and filtration system. So it's pretty much a unique idea, a very attractive idea actually. But most of my sanding tools, I do use dust collection, but you do have the availability to remove this and connect your regular dust collection system to it. So this just pops off, and it's got a little filter in there. And on first sight, you'd think you have all of this volume for dust collection, but actually it's probably cut in half by this little extruded tube there. And but it is what it is. And I believe this should just come off by pulling it. Yeah, so you can take this right out if you don't want to use it, and you can use your external dust extraction system to connect to the back of it. But I did hear some complaints about the cabling and, you know, where it comes out of the body. So I am looking forward to testing it out, and I'll have a few shots of that in a little bit. Let me put this one back on. Looks like there's a little rubber O-ring over here as well to seal off so dust does not come out. And again, you see how the cord just got stuck in there, and that just snaps up on top, just like that. All right, so I have the random orbital sander by Bauer. Since this is a scrap piece of wood with some old carvings, I have spray paint in the carving, and so this will be a good test for it. And I'm going to put some witness marks with some pencil in there as well, for good measure. Put that aside. All right, so the power switch is on the front, right below the handle, and it seems like it's covered up with some silicone covering to protect it from dust, which is nice. On the side, you have a dial which is 1 through 6, and that controls the OPMs, which is the orbits per minute, I believe. And it's a 2.8 amp fan-cooled motor with sealed bearings for long life, which is nice. And like I said, onboard dust collection as well as external dust collection if you want it. So let's get to it. The way this attaches to the bottom is by hook and loop, which is basically Velcro. It's 80 grit, so I will use it on this. And the trick is, obviously, you want to line up these holes to the holes of the bottom of the unit so there's proper dust collection. Just like so. And we'll go ahead and plug it into the outlet. Okay, so I have it plugged in. I'm going to turn it on for the first time. So that's the lower setting. I'm not sure what you would use that for. And that's about at the 4. I'm going to put it on the highest setting. I made easy work of removing the pencil marks, which is nice. And it's at a good surface right now. It is 80 grit, so it's going to be rough, but it seems fairly consistent in the flatness. So I'm going to go ahead and tackle the overspray on this carving to see if it removes the overspray. Sometimes that can be challenging. Okay. That worked like a charm. In no time it removed the overspray. So what I'm noticing right off the bat in this little demonstration, there is some vibration. Nothing out of the ordinary from any other palm sander. I think the high rubber grip absorbs most of that vibration, which is nice. So let's check the dust box and see if we have adequate dust collection. I can already see there's some dust in there. Put that aside. Yep. I already see some dust in there, which is good. That means it's working. And I do see on the inside of that little filter, I do see some dust in there. So that actually is working out well too. Obviously, these are not perfect on any machine. In my opinion, the proper dust collection is hooking it to an external dust collection or shop vac. But I think it works. This actually does work. So I'm happy about that. All right, let's check out the sheet sander. I cut a piece of regular sandpaper. You can buy pre-made, pre-cut pieces, but it's just for me easier to cut them out. And the trick is you got to cut them out just right, because if they're too big, they're not going to work. They're going to be too loose and you're going to lose a lot of that power behind it. So it would be very difficult. Yeah, so you would have to take the dust box off to put the paper in. I mean, I guess you can do it. It just makes it a little bit cumbersome. I'll try it and check it out and see how it works. So the paper just slips in there like that, and you clip the back side, and then you bring it around. These have always been a little cumbersome for me to do on any model. It's just a pain. But, all right. I guess you can do it with the dust box on. So just a little bit more cumbersome, but you can do it. All right, so this is where this comes in. So this little plastic plate helps create the holes needed for alignment for a proper dust collection on the bottom of the pad. So you just put it down and you put this over your paper and you just press down like that. And it, well, okay, it didn't do much. So let's try it again. Still didn't do much. Let's try it this way. So, this really isn't working. So these should line up. Yeah, these definitely line up. Let me try it again. As you can see, it really didn't punch the holes in there. And you really do need these holes in the sandpaper for proper dust collection. Let me try a little harder. It's getting there. This really isn't working out too well with this plate. You really have to put a lot of pressure on it to even get to that point where it's some of the holes are not even perfectly open. All right, let's move on then. Unless I'm doing it wrong, but there's no other way I'm doing it. Okay, let's put this aside, get it plugged in. All right, same deal. Put some pencil marks on here. So I ran out of 80 grit paper. I only have 60, so it's a little bit of a different grit that I'm using. On this one, you have, again, the on-off button on the front. Again, sealed with a rubberized seal to prevent any dust from getting in there. Let's go ahead and turn it on. Sounds good. Okay, well, I removed the pencil marks. I did notice it did take a little longer than the random orbital sander, and this has a heavier grit sandpaper on it too. So, but it did remove them. It took about another 15 to 20 seconds longer than the random orbital sander, but it removed the pencil marks. And I'm very doubtful that there's any dust in here because, like I said, there's only really two holes that are open, and the other ones are just little indents. So let's open it up. I do see some dust. So whatever openings there are, it is taking in some of the dust. And I can see on the filter there's a light coating of dust on the filter as well. So it is working, but I'm not understanding why these are not punching holes in the sandpaper. Let me try something else. So in all fairness, what I'm going to do is try a different sheet of sandpaper. See if that makes a difference. This sandpaper is made by 3M. It is a little bit of a thicker material. So let's try this off-brand 220 grit. It seems to be slightly thinner. So I have the plate. Let's give it a try. Alright, so it is slightly better. Alright, so this off-brand sandpaper did perform better. There are 3 holes that are completely through, 4 that are not, and 1 slightly through. I'm not too concerned about it. And I guess what you can do is kind of help it along with a pencil. Just as a comparison, this one is for my porta cable, and this one's for the Bauer. And the one for the porta cable, the little plastic nubs are a little bit more pronounced than the Bauer. So that might have something to do with it. But I would have to say that's a minor complaint. Alright, that's it in a nutshell. I'm going to put them through the paces and see how they compare. Again, this is not a paid promotion of any sorts. I paid roughly $24 each on sale at Harbor Freight. I just thought it was a great value. Alright, so if you were thinking about making the purchase, I hope this video was helpful. So please like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, and I will see you next time. First quality assurance test.